Gitche Manitou by Maria de Los Angeles Virgen. Chapter 1. The Dream. I remembered one night riding my bike home after curfew when a cop stopped me. He breathalyzed me at random, but by then I was already clean. So tonight, as I pedaled down the dirt road, I knew the alcohol was already gone from my body. What the hell is going on? I muttered to myself as I turned a corner. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. My mind was playing tricks on me again, blending reality with dreams. I can't move like that, I thought. I have never been in gymnastics, and I sure as hell am not a cheerleader. Standing up on the pedals, I pushed myself harder, the dirt road turning into pavement as I flew down the empty street. The wind whipped through my hair, and for a moment I felt like I could fly. My long, dark hair trailed behind me like a cape, and for the first time that night, without a high note, I felt weightless. Free. I sat back down on my bike, gripping the handlebars tightly, and pulled back, lifting the front tire off the road. At that moment, it wasn't just a bike beneath me, it was a powerful black stallion rearing up on its hind legs, a wild creature ready to charge into battle. I imagined myself riding bareback, a native warrior on the verge of war. Yeah, I know, I'm kind of weird. Most of my friends were skaters, but I was different. I loved my BMX. I had spent countless hours babysitting rowdy kids just to save enough money for this bike. It was mine in a way. Nothing else was. I was protective of my things. As a foster child who bounced from house to house when I was little, you tend to appreciate getting to keep some familiarity around you. But to call me a tomboy would be wrong, at least on the inside. What I loved most was being unpredictable, breaking the rules, and doing things people thought I couldn't and wouldn't do. One of those things was riding my bike in long skirts. Tonight was no exception. The skirt I wore was one I'd made myself, a black ribbon skirt I'd crafted from a thrift store sari. I'd sewn 3 red ribbons around the bottom in a native ribbon fashion, using leftover Christmas decorations my foster mom had too much of. Red was my favorite color, a sign of strength, of rebellion. I called it my Enigma skirt, a nod to the fact that Columbus couldn't tell the difference between natives and Indians from Asia. The irony wasn't lost on me. My hair whipped behind me as I pedaled, the length a quiet tribute to my native heritage. Though I never grew up with my mother's culture, I still felt more native than European. It was a bigger part of my soul. I never knew my father. The social worker told me he was European and that had gotten my pale skin from him, but that was all I knew. He had fled back to Europe when my mother passed, leaving me in the care of the state, my life handed over to the foster system. The Bureau of Indian Affairs had stepped in, giving me access to certain benefits like my social worker, but I had always been a mystery, a mix of 2 worlds I didn't fully belong to. At night, I would braid my hair into 2 thick braids so it would be wavy the next day. During the day, I let it fall loose, but by the end of the day, it was straight as a rod. A simple nod to the past I had never fully known. Was my father still alive? Who knew? He was unreachable, they said, and I had stopped wondering about him a long time ago. My life had been shaped by the desert, by the town that smelled of burnt hay and cow patties, and by the solitude I found riding my bike through the streets late at night. As I pedaled, I let the music from my headphones take over my mind. My portable CD player was bulky, but I didn't care. I had burned my favorite songs onto a disc. tracks from Requiem in White and Dead Can Dance. They were completely different styles of music, but both held the same haunting, dark energy that I craved. I was a goth to my core, though no one in this dusty little town seemed to understand what goth was. It was 1994, but here it felt like people were stuck in the 1950s. Tonight I wore a long-sleeved black silk blouse, sheer, with a tank underneath to cover what I didn't want exposed. The shirt looked like something a hippie would wear, but because it was black, it was mine, and therefore goth. My makeup was pale, almost ghostly, with dark red lipstick that bordered on black. A smudge of red eyeshadow curved like a half moon over the creases of my eyelids. The eerie, ethereal voices from my headphones wrapped around my thoughts, calling out to something deep inside me. I swerved slightly, moving my body in rhythm with the music as I coasted down the empty streets of my sleeping town. For a moment, everything felt right. Then I felt it, a strange sensation, like eyes watching me. I stopped abruptly, my heart skipping a beat as a shiver ran down my spine. I pulled my headphones off and scanned my surroundings. The street was empty, but there was someone nearby. I could feel it. And then, faintly, I smelled it. Rot, something dead, decaying. The scent drifted toward me from behind, and a wave of unease washed over me. My instincts kicked in. This town might have been small, but it was dangerous, especially at night. Living so close to the border, I had seen enough crimes during my nocturnal bike rides as know when to get out of Dodge. I pedaled hard to escape the smell, my pulse racing as I pushed myself toward home. I wasn't far now. Home. A place I had never considered safe. But right now, it was safer than these streets. I cut through Buckland Park, hoping to shave off a few minutes from my ride. That's when I heard it. Someone following me howled. The sound made me stop dead in my tracks, my breath catching as I perked my ear toward it. The howl, deep, menacing like the one I had summoned earlier, but darker, more dangerous. It wasn't a mournful or lonely cry, but if danger had a sound, this would be it. A siren call of something far more threatening than anything I had ever known. I whipped my head around, scanning the park. Nothing. No dog, no coyote. Just scattered trees standing on their small grassy man-made mounds. Poor attempts by the city to fool the people of El Centro into thinking this desert wasn't a barren wasteland that stank of manure and sunburnt hay. Normally, I felt safe here at the park, but something about this moment made the air feel thin, suffocating. Yet when you start to question your own sanity, maybe nowhere is safe. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The park felt unnaturally quiet. I could still hear the faint thrum of music leaking from my headphones, so I quickly turned it off, wanting to hear everything. Anything that might clue me into what was happening. Usually there'd be desert owls hooting or the restless honking of geese by the pond as I sped past on my bike. Now, not even the wind moved through the trees. It was like the entire world had stopped breathing. Then, I heard it again, but this time, it wasn't a howl. It was a voice.
"Hello, little red."
A deep, almost guttural voice said, cutting through the silence like a knife. The words came from above and to my right. I spun around, heart racing. There he was. He leaped down from a tree, crashing to the ground with a thunderous snap, bringing a thick branch with him. The crack of wood echoed. sending shockwaves through me and making my skin crawl. I couldn't move. My feet were frozen as my mind struggled to catch up with what was happening. As he stood before me, his form came into focus. My legs started moving toward him as if on autopilot, while my mind screamed at me to stop. Everything slowed down. The scene around me burned itself into my memory. His tall, looming figure, the shattered branch at his feet, his sharp, predatory smile. He grinned at me, his fangs glinting in the dim light. Long, exposed fangs, not human. He couldn't be. But what terrified me most wasn't the fangs or his unnerving presence. It was how calm I felt. My fear wasn't directed at him. It was directed at this entire surreal moment. There was a magnetic pull I felt coming from him, as if he had somehow hypnotized me. Was this how I was going to die? I thought to myself. I had heard of a peace that comes before death. No, it couldn't be, but I wanted to get a closer look at him. He stood tall, much taller than anyone I had ever seen around here, with striking red eyes that gleamed like a demon's. Was he a vampire? Dracula? The thought would have made me laugh if it weren't for the icy dread settling in my stomach. All Goths fantasized about vampires, sure, but I had never truly believed in them. Not until now. He wore a large, worn black hat that looked somewhere between a cowboy hat and a top hat, its brim casting shadows over half his face. He tilted his head as if studying me or allowing me to study him. His long, dark brown hair framed his angular face like curtains, and he was brawny, his chin strong and clean-shaven. He was cloaked in a long black coat, his jeans worn and faded. But then that smell hit me, the same rotting stench from earlier creeping into the air around us. It was suffocating, like the aftermath of a forest fire where everything is charred and dead. I realized with a sudden jolt of panic that my feet were still moving, carrying me closer to him, away from the path, toward the tree and the shattered branch at his feet. Was I going to end up like that tree, broken and discarded? I blinked, forcing myself to stop. 3 feet away from him, I stood, my last step landing on the crushed leaves from the fallen branch. The scent of eucalyptus filled the air as the oils bled through my moccasins, mixing with the stench of decay. For a moment, we stood in silence. I could hear the slow, steady rhythm of my breathing and the thudding of my heart in my chest. His glowing red eyes bored into me, and I felt the weight of his presence pressing down on me like a heavy, invisible force. He didn't move. Neither did I. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves around us, but the park remained eerily quiet. It was as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. My heart raced, and yet there was a strange calm settling over me, an acceptance of whatever this was. It felt like the moment before the storm, the brief pause, before everything changed. A strange strength surged up from deep inside me then, like a power I didn't know I had. Adrenaline, stupidity, who knew? But I held his gaze, unflinching, and watched as his grin quickly turned into a look of disapproval. Whatever spell he'd cast over me was slipping, and he didn't like it. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat, emotionless, robotic. I noticed him sniffing the air, slowly at first. Then I realized he hadn't been breathing at all until I stopped in front of him. Now he was taking in deep, slow breaths, tasting the air around us like a predator testing its prey. Suddenly, his movement stopped, and those red, piercing eyes locked onto mine again. His voice boomed when he spoke, even though it was no more than a whisper.
What are you?
He asked, his tone both bewildered and commanding. The question caught me off guard because it was exactly what I wanted to know about him. Why would he ask such a silly question?
You smell like a wolf for the undead. Like both.
He hissed at me, his words dripping with confusion. I could hear a slight accent, but I couldn't place it. Then, just as quickly as his anger had surfaced, his face softened and those red eyes shifted into a warm, human amber brown. For a moment, I saw the man beneath the monster. He was beautiful in that instant, startlingly so.
Mate,
He declared loudly, the word slicing through the silence like a blade. And just like that, the strange bravery I had summoned vanished. My knees felt weak and my heart thudded in my chest. Suddenly, I was just a lost teenager from a forgotten desert town, someone who didn't know where she was going, didn't know what would happen after high school, and didn't know what to do if her foster mom kicked her out, like she'd threatened so many times since turning 18. I felt vulnerable, exposed, like dinner. Something about his words stirred an ache deep inside me, a feeling I didn't understand. But I didn't move. If there was one thing my past had taught me through abusive foster homes and run-ins with the law, it was how to keep my emotions hidden. No matter how scared or confused I was, I knew how to stay stoic, calm, and unbothered. My face remained a mask, my breathing steady as if nothing unusual was happening. It was a learned, instinctive reaction to stress. But then, he surprised me. He smiled softly and made a slight motion to inch closer, but stopped himself. I couldn't stop staring at his lips. Full, inviting, and impossibly close. Some part of me wanted to reach out, to touch them, to kiss them, but I didn't move. What was wrong with me? Shoot, is this how seduction works for vampires? He bowed suddenly, tipping his hat over his chest, revealing his full face and hair. He looked nervous, a stark contrast from earlier.
excuse me, milady. Good evening. My name is Andy.
He said, his voice gentler now. His whole demeanor had shifted and he looked less dangerous, more human, like someone else entirely. He paused, waiting for me to offer my name, but I couldn't speak. My mind was racing, my thoughts spinning in circles. I just stared at him, unable to form a single word. After a long silence, he spoke again, his voice cautious.
You are a hybrid. Excuse me, but I've never seen one who has lived to adulthood.
He said, pausing.
You're half werewolf, half vampire.
He continued, speaking slowly as if he couldn't quite believe it himself.
A vaewolf.
His eyes scanned me, waiting for a response, but I still couldn't speak. All I could do was blink, my shoulders relaxing slightly under his gaze.
And the last time I saw one like you was a few hundred years ago.
He said with a sly smile. But then something changed. Panic flashed across his face and he quickly looked away. What had spooked him? Before I could react, he stepped behind the tree he had jumped from, and just like that, he was gone. Vanished. I didn't need to look behind the tree to know he had disappeared. The stench, the eerie feeling, everything that had accompanied his presence was gone. The park came back to life. Ducks quacked, geese honked, and the frogs in the nearby pond croaked in unison. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves, and the world returned to normal. But I wasn't quite normal. I fell to my knees, gasping for air, realizing I had been holding my breath for what felt like an eternity. My body was trembling, adrenaline still coursing through me. Goosebumps covered my skin, and sweat pooled under my arms. I wanted to cry, to scream, to release everything I was feeling, but I didn't. I grabbed my bike and rode home in a daze, barely noticing the streets as they blurred past me. When I reached the house, I snuck in through the back door, the one I always left unlocked. This time, I made sure to lock it behind me. I stumbled into the bathroom and awkwardly got into the shower, fully clothed. The hot water rushed over me, washing away the grime, but not the confusion. I peeled off my layers and dumped them unceremoniously into the hamper. After drying off, I stood in front of the foggy bathroom mirror, a towel wrapped around my head, ready to start my nightly routine. I surmised that this night was just a small manic night and decided best to just forget about it. I wiped away the steam to the mirror, revealing my face, but what stared back at me wasn't my image. Two glowing red eyes, bright as fire, looked out from my reflection. I jumped back, my heart pounding in my chest. I almost slammed into the wall, but the towel around my head cushioned the blow. I couldn't tear my gaze from the mirror. I blinked, hoping the eyes would vanish, but they didn't. They glowed, even in the fully lit bathroom, burning into me like the eyes of a banshee. What the hell was happening to me? I yanked the towel from my head and frantically wiped the mirror, praying that there was some stupid red smudge or trick of the light causing the reflection. Then I rubbed my face with the towel, thinking it was leftover red eyeshadow. But there was nothing. The glass was clean, and my reflection stared back at me with wide, bewildered eyes. My damp, black hair clung to my heart-shaped face, sticking to my skin like cold fingers. I suddenly felt exposed. My arms reflexively pulled the towel tighter around my body, covering myself. When I dared to look up again, the glowing red eyes were gone. Just my own face, pale and shaken, looked back at me. "What in the fucking fuck?" I muttered, the words tasting bitter as they left my lips. My voice sounded foreign in the small, steamy bathroom. I stared at myself a while longer, scanning every inch of my reflection, trying to convince myself that I wasn't losing my mind. Once I was somewhat satisfied that I wasn't seeing things, I hastily applied my night creams, my fingers trembling as they moved across my skin. The usual ritual, so calming on any other night, did nothing to soothe me now. After braiding my hair, I slipped into bed, my mind still racing in all directions. I couldn't stop thinking about the man from the park, his face, his voice, the way he had appeared out of nowhere. No matter how hard I tried to push the memory away, it kept creeping back like a shadow. And the worst part? I wanted to see him again. As much as I wanted to deny it, I needed to find him. I needed answers. If he was real and not some hallucination or trick of my overworked mind, I needed him to return the peace he had stolen from me. I needed him. I cringed at the thought, disgusted with myself. What is wrong with me? I felt like some needy, lovesick girl, a far cry from the independent rebel I prided myself on being. How could I be so drawn to him? The pull, the need, whatever it was, I hated myself for it. What had he called me? A hybrid, half werewolf, half vampire? The words echoed in my mind, twisting and turning, refusing to let go. Andy. His name rolled around in my head like an unanswered question. The name was such a common name. Nothing I pictured a monster having. What was he? A vampire? A werewolf? Or was he both, just like he claimed I was? I remembered the howl, the way it mirrored mine, but was somehow deeper, darker. Could he be like me? No, wait. I'm not like that. I'm not any of those things, I reminded myself, trying to push the absurd thoughts away. This was crazy. I was crazy. Had to be. I sighed, sinking deeper into my bed, letting the mattress cradle my weary body. Well, this is it, Mags, I muttered aloud to myself, my voice barely above a whisper. You're officially Looney Tunes. I rolled onto my side, making sure my damp braids were pulled away from my head so they wouldn't break as I slept. I closed my eyes, determined to leave the madness of the night behind me, to bury the strangeness in the silence of sleep. But just as I began to drift off, a voice pierced through the darkness, a voice clear and strong, as if it was right beside me.
No, Magdalena, you are definitely not crazy. I am your wolf, Luce. I'm so glad you're finally able to hear me.
I shot up in bed, my body shaking with shock as a scream tore from my throat. The sound rang through the house like an emergency siren. Suddenly, any resolve that I had succumbed to my anxieties. Luce? My wolf? My heart pounded against my ribcage, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I frantically looked around the room, expecting to see something there. But there was nothing. Just the quiet hum of the house, the soft rustle of the curtains in the breeze from my slightly open window. I clutched my chest, trying to steady myself. What the hell? I whispered, my voice barely audible. But deep down, something clicked into place. Something ancient, something primal. Luce. The name echoed in my mind. And though I wanted to reject the idea, part of me knew, deep down, that it was true. This wasn't just in my head. Something had changed tonight, and there was no going back.
You're not alone anymore,
whispered my wolf.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and help me bring more content to you.